Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming this evening. I'd like to call to order our regular council meeting of Monday, November 25th to order, and start by acknowledging we're holding this evening's meeting in the traditional territory of the Signage people. Now I'd like to start with our public participation period. Ask speakers to come to the mic. There's a little button to make it red and live, and ask that you give your name and address, and please address, we welcome your address to council this evening. Calling for speakers for a first time. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jocelyn Gifford, 10448 Albay Road. This afternoon, 7 women interested in Sydney's environment and especially in its trees met, and six of us are Sydney residents. We want to express our support for your work on the strategic plan. Of the 7 overarching goals, we were especially interested in number 2, environmental stewardship, and number 1, the complete community, although of course we recognize the importance of all of them. On number 2, environmental stewardship, they're all good priorities, but we especially noted the plan to invest in a tree planting program and to set specific targets for desired tree canopy. We also welcomed the objective of working with community organizations on an annual Tree Appreciation Day. As you know, there are a few people in Sydney who have been writing and asking for Tree Appreciation Day for a number of years. We look forward to working with the town on these and other actions. We do recognize that the devil is in the details, and however that the strategic plan is not a place where a lot of details can be included, and that they remain to be worked out. We also welcome the continued focus on Ray Creek and the new commitment to address concerns regarding CM Harbour. We look forward to a State of Environment report and to finding out what kind of form that takes. Regarding overarching priority number 1, complete communities, we noted the focus on affordable housing and the primary focus areas for the official community plan. We look forward to participating in community engagement opportunities and working with you as the devilish details get sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments and your continued interest in the tree appreciation. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. Dennis Yellen, 2545 Oakville Avenue. I'm speaking today about the amendment to zoning bylaw 2176, which was passed a couple of weeks ago. And I was looking at previous documents of council and looked at this particular case, and the bylaw amendment had 41 changes. And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh, it's basically focusing to a large extent on sort of Airbnbs and a few things like that. And I was thinking, that doesn't really affect me, so I didn't pursue it. But I was thinking, as we move forward, over the last 10 years I've been coming to council and committee of the whole, issues of zoning and official community plan questions come to us many, many times. And citizens are often, surprised to hear what is there, what is not there. And when I looked at this particular document, I thought it would be really helpful to have had a track change version of the document going forward. So the bylaw is 84 pages long. 41 amendments. I could have spent a couple of hours maybe going through and trying to figure, well, what does this mean and what does this mean? In many cases, these are not probably that consequential. There may be changes in the definition, they may be minor, but in some cases they could be quite significant. So I'm wondering, as a policy, a procedure going forward, if the town would be interested or preparing track change documents for more significant or major proposals, and when you issue your announcements or notices for a public hearing, and as you're required to do, to indicate in that more information. Go to the website, click on this, and have a link to the change version document, easy to find on the website, other than having to sort of fish through 3 or 4 pages. That would have provided me an opportunity in 15 minutes to say, aha, I see what the changes are, a nice red, and that would really be helpful. It might inform people. You might have, I noticed it's kind of sad, but when the public hearing eventually took place, there were no speakers in the meeting and no written documents coming in. And down the road, we may find people who do have, for example, Airbnb or other kinds of accommodation may be surprised to find out what changes were happening. I think that'd be a really good addition to the town's efforts for greater transparency in dealing with the citizens as we go forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the suggestion. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor McNeil Smith and councillors. John Blair, 2312 Henry Avenue in Sydney. I hope that as soon as possible you can all take a walk past the Ravens Crossing site at 7th Street and Breather Avenue, where the demolition of some of Sydney's last affordable housing is in its final stage. This is just around the corner from my home on Henry Avenue. Some of the former tenants there, many of whom had likely no place to go, left furniture and other possessions behind, and these have been piled up in a pathetic heap of debris at the rear of the condemned building for several weeks. Now, at the presentation to this council by the Ravens Crossing representative on January the 21st, 2019, she told council that tenants would receive what she called informal help in relocating. I spoke to some of the tenants afterwards, and up to the time of their actual evictions on August the 1st, they told me no such relocation help had ever been offered. Back on February 19th of this year, I inquired at the public participation here as to what informal help actually entailed. Councillors O'Keefe and Garnett had also earlier expressed concern as to the tenants' future. As it turned out, there wasn't any help at all offered to these people by the developers of Ravens Crossing other than an extension of the notice to leave. In future, to avoid this abuse of low income or any other tenants, it would be useful for the town of Sydney to hold developers to account on their promises and get a written outline on exactly what shape informal help will take. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Duck, 9805 2nd Street, Sydney. I want to acknowledge that you've now completed your first year of service as council for the town of Sydney. And for one, I appreciate what you've done over the past year, and thank you for that. In particular, I appreciate what you've done in your discussion, in your questions, and in your sharing of information among your colleagues. I think the interaction between yourselves has demonstrated that there's good decision-making being made here in the community. That is a double-edged sword because it has led to, as you well know, long meetings and longer discussions. And my concern here is that there have been a couple of processes in the past 2 months which I want to take mention to. And I'm not contesting the outcome of both those processes. In this matter, it's not important, but one was a business application and one was a development application. And it was the process in which those both occurred over the past 2 months that I'm concerned about, that you're now a year in, and there should be more clarity and better results in what you're doing as a council. And I'm hoping that the extended discussions aren't burying you in the weeds and you're not having an opportunity to bring your head up and look around and sort of get a direction as to where we're going as a community. And I hope that you can bring your head up and make sure that the process is fair to all concerned and that we continue forward. But again, I thank you for those discussions, those interactions, those questions. I think they're important for the community here. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment and feedback. I'll call for a third time. Is there anyone wishing to address council this evening? Seeing none, I'll bring public participation to a close. Thank you to all speakers this evening. I'd now look for a motion with regards to our agenda. Councillor Fallon?
Mr. Mayor, I would just like to bring out of 16 letter number 6 and place it under new business for 15A. It's the email from Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee.
Okay, so item 16.6 going to item 15A. Thank you. Councillor Garnett?
I'd like.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, he's pointing at me. I'd like to move for item 16.5, letter number 5, to be moved to new business, I guess 15B, just for discussion.
Okay, if we could have a motion.
Motion to move as, or approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. We now have the minutes from our regular council meeting of November 12th.
Move adoption.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We don't have any business not completed. We do have business arising from in-camera minutes from our council in-camera meeting of November 12th. There were 2 items. There are some 2020 citizen appointments to commissions, committees, and boards, and those will be announced at the organizational meeting on Monday, December 2nd next week. And the second is we brought out of in-camera our update of the 2019 to 2022 strategic plan, and it is later on our agenda this evening under item 11A. Now I'd like to move down to council reports, and we have one from Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, this is just a report out on the Crd Water Commission, our last meeting. We appointed new members to the Water Advisory Committee, and we got interim pH corrosion study results, and this is pertaining to the new Canada Health Guidelines for lead in drinking water supply, and it's been in the news, so I thought I'd give an update on what the CRD's done. They tested water at 170 of the distribution system nodes in the main network, and we found that our water, the pH is higher than they thought it was due to the new sanitation process that they have at the plant. So our pH is about 8.1 and fairly unlikely to leach anything out of the pipes in the first place. And we only found 2 locations where they tested above guideline limits for corrosion potential and and for lead. And so out of those 170, there were only 2 that even had a high potential. There were a couple with moderate potential. None of the ones on the Signage Peninsula had above a low potential. So they're just, the next phase of the study is they're going to be going into the municipalities downstream of nodes that tested for high and some of the moderate corrosion potentials, and starting to kind of refine the network and identify where there might be old lead pipes going into neighborhoods and potentially residential areas where there are older houses where they might have lead pipes in their houses, and then identifying critical households they should actually start doing tap tests. But given that up here on the peninsula and for most of the CRD there is really nowhere that we had that high potential, it's unlikely that anywhere here in Sydney we'd be identified for that, so that's good to know. We had our wildfire report. We had the lowest fire season in 7 years, so it was kind of interesting after the last few years we had. We only had 1 fire down by the Japan Gulch, and it was identified on a morning patrol. It was put out by that afternoon, and it was from a downed power line. A tree fell on a BC Hydro line, and BC Hydro had fixed the line and got the power back going by that afternoon as well. So it was really just a really good test case of how well prepared we were. And they've added new fire attack trucks and added 19 additional helicopter landing sites. They've almost completed all of the fire breaks and the brush clearing up in the Souk watershed that they've intended to do. And next year, or maybe the year after, we'll start testing controlled burns in the Leach watershed. So we'll kind of be expanding our potential for being able to stay on top of fuel loading in our watershed and keep our water supply pristine. Thanks.
Thank you. Now move to committee reports, and we have item 10A is the Economic Advisory Committee, their meeting of October 31st.
I'll move receipt of the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to point out one item that's referenced here and add some clarity. First of all, it seems like a very enthusiastic and keen group, well populated with members both from the community at large, but also from the various sectors, stakeholder groups. So I think we'll be well served by having this group liaising with council and working with us around offering advisory to economic initiatives in the town. I would point out one item in terms of orientation, the mayor provided some background on the roles of committees such as this. The group decided to delay appointing a chair until its second meeting, only because they wanted an opportunity to get to know some of the members and participants. And I'm pleased to announce that at that second meeting, Natalie King was appointed as chair. Natalie is the general manager of the Pier Hotel and certainly well-respected businesswoman in our community. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to have her leadership expertise as chair, and David Calverley is serving as vice chair. And one observation the entire group had at our most recent meeting, not included here if you allow the indulgence, is to acknowledge to town work staff how fantastic the streets look decked out for the holiday season, and so they wanted me to pass along their appreciation to town staff for how great things look. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the update, Councillor. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favour? And the motion carries. Thank you. And we'll move to 10B, the Advisory Planning Commission meeting of November 19th.
I'll move recommendation that the minutes be received.
Second.
All those in favour? The motion carries.
I'm going to excuse myself from this item under potential conflict of interest as my wife works at Amica.
Thank you, Councillor.
There was one recommendation that came from the commission. I sat in for Councillor Wainwright on that one. First recommendation is development permit application number DP 100806 at 2315 Mills Road. The recommendation is that the development permit application number DP 100806 2315 Mills Road for the form and character of a 3-story addition to an existing 3-story multifamily residential assisted living development be approved, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant submit additional information on the height, location, and screening of the rooftop mechanical equipment addressing design guideline number 20.3.17 to the satisfaction of the senior manager of current planning. And 2, that prior to the issuance of a building permit, the property owner shall A, pay to the town a deposit in the amount of 115% of the estimated cost to complete the hard and soft landscaping for development, and B, register a flood hazard covenant on the title of the property referencing the submitted engineer's report.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Fallon.
Just a couple of comments that came out. Committee or commission members were really quite in favor and quite thrilled with this particular project. They felt that it fit into the neighborhood. There was some concern regarding the renos to the existing building not necessarily matching up with the new build. but it was felt that because of the design of the building, that it's a long building and wouldn't necessarily be seen flat on, that was a lesser of an issue. They were quite satisfied with the rooftop equipment being basically tucked away because of the design of the roof and the distance from the street. And we're really quite thrilled with the fact that this was a non-combustible construction. There had been some conversation regarding what if there's a fire emergency in the area because of all the other care homes in there. And they said that this building is being built to non-combustible, which is concrete and steel. And so it's really not an issue. So they were quite happy with this particular project and being able to make the recommendations.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to staff reports, and we have item 11A, which is the updated 2019 to 2000. Sorry? Oh yes, of course. Okay. Now I'd like to move to item 11, staff reports, and item 11A is our updated 2019 to 2022 strategic plan.
I'll move that the updated Town of Sydney Strategic Plan, 2019 to 2022, be approved and disseminated to the community via the town's website, social media outlets, town talk, and media release.
Second.
Councillor Fallon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would just like one little wording change, if I may, on page 6 under section 4, community engagement, strategic priorities and actions. Under point 3, it says collaboration with neighboring municipalities. I wonder if we could consider changing that to collaboration with neighboring local governments. One of the things we heard at UBCM was the consideration that not all jurisdictions are municipalities, and in respect and inclusiveness to accommodate and recognize that is to change the wording from municipalities to local governments.
Would you like to make that as a motion?
So I would like to make that motion that we change the wording from municipalities to local governments.
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for that good suggestion. Now call the question. Any further discussion on the strategic plan? I'd just like to congratulate council on working together on the update, meeting with senior staff and having their input. Last year, at the beginning of our term, we embarked on a complete review of the strategic plan, and this year we did an update. And I'd like to mention at this time that next Monday evening will be the council organizational meeting. The only items of business at the annual organizational meeting are announcement of citizen appointments, councillor appointments to committees, boards and commissions, and I'll be giving the annual mayor's address. So I look forward to bringing the annual update to the community next week and continuing that in the community in the months ahead. I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We now have item 11B, which is a report on the conversion of Sydney's light-duty fleet to electric vehicles, a report dated November 19th.
I'll move receipt and that staff apply for grants and/or rebates to install new EV chargers at the works yard and bring forward a budget item for 2020 budget deliberations.
Any discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Wainwright.
If I could maybe just a bit of a follow-up. This subject relates to our climate action plan, and the town has got a climate action plan that was adopted in 2010 that has a variety of targets in there. One of them is related to our fleet of vehicles, so this particular action is moving in that direction. But one of the targets for greenhouse gas reductions for the community as a whole is due in 2020. And I think it would be worthwhile if we have a discussion at a future committee of the whole about the climate action plan and where we stand on things. So I'd like to move that we refer that to a future committee of the whole for discussion.
So this is a motion arising. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion? I'll just add that I think that's an excellent suggestion. This is an excellent report on one aspect of our corporate GHG emissions, and I think having that broader discussion on the climate action plan would be certainly timely and worthwhile. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. We now have item 11C, which is a response to the Siddle Road petition, report from staff dated November 19th.
I'll move the recommendation that staff be directed to provide response letters to Mr. Jellens and Mr. Kirkendale indicating why the town will not install speed humps on Siddle Road.
Discussion. Councillor O'Keefe.
Yes, I'm in support of the motion. I guess the only thing I wanted to point out, and this was sort of discussed when the issue first came up, is the amount of traffic sort of increasing from the north side of Sydney coming into town. And at the time, you know, I floated the idea out there about, you know, the possibility of traffic being able to access the Pat Bay Highway up by McDonald Park Road, and realizing that maybe that's a big wish in terms of getting MOTI to do that. But I guess what I would hope, suggest perhaps to staff, not a motion, but just suggest to keep this close by, because they're in terms of a wish list item perhaps from MOTI. And the reason is, I think, you know, when you look at the statistics here about the average traffic really, so it clearly shows, it seems to me, that there's significant more southbound traffic than northbound. So what that says to me is people like me who are from that north side, we need to, if we're going downtown Victoria or anywhere out of Sydney, we have to go through that area. And so it increases traffic through the town just to get onto the Pat Bay Highway to go south. So I think that's worth noting. And I guess the other reason to keep it in mind is we know that MOTI is looking to redevelop that space where the tourist information is currently, and they might be looking at options to perhaps reconfigure that sort of traffic area. And I understand that in the past, you used to be able to head southbound on Pat Bay Highway. So I guess I'm just saying food for thought in the event that MOTI comes to us to say we're looking at maybe doing some traffic changes in that area, that we'll have some information to put forth to perhaps support that.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Rintoul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, through the Mayor to staff, the last paragraph in the report in advance of the recommendation refers to the town's mobile speed reader could be deployed on occasion to collect traffic speed and volumes on Siddle Road. Question is, when it says could be deployed, is that the intent is to try and continue to monitor this actively given the concern that residents have raised?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Rintoul. Yeah, that would be the intent, is to put the mobile speed reader there on occasion for a couple reasons, just to help educate drivers of their speed through that section of road, as well as to collect data for future analysis, see if there's any trends with traffic flows or patterns and volumes.
Thank you. I think that's that would be appreciated by the residents, certainly in my point of view. Another question is around enhanced signage. Have we, despite the fact that the request here was around something particular, but have we seen elsewhere in the town where enhanced signage has been used perhaps to address concerns of this nature? And I know I've seen in North Saanich fairly recently where they've placed speed signs in the center line of West Saanich and areas, and I'm not suggesting that the width of the road space here is suitable, but again, those signs seem to be very effective in terms of having them in the center line. But aside from that particular example, other examples where enhanced signage may be helpful in a scenario such as this.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Rintoul. That's something we could consider. When we looked at the data for this particular stretch, we didn't see that speed was really an issue. You know, we look at the results and even we had the mobile speed reader out there in total of about 21 days going both directions in total. And there was over, I think, 28,000 vehicles, I think we counted. And out of that, vehicles going over the posted speed limit was less than 1%. So it was really a small percentage of any speed issues there. Majority of the speed of those vehicles is actually, if you see the averages, it's around 35. So I'm not sure in this case if enhanced signage would accomplish anything. It seemed like the speeds in general are quite low.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garnett and then Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, I see it's a 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limit. Is there any thoughts to maybe dropping that to 40? Would that be something that might make the neighbors happy as well as perhaps, perception of speed?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Garnett. You said any time you can consider speed changes. In this case, putting a lower posted speed, I'm not sure what the result would be from that. You may get a few more drivers slowing a bit more, but I think in this particular stretch, just the design or the configuration of the road, it's narrow, you get the cars parked on both sides, and people generally are traveling quite slow, and that's what the data is suggesting as well. So, yeah.
I'm just thinking in terms of something that looks proactive that we're doing for the neighborhood that might calm some of the fears or concerns they have.
Yeah, if we could certainly look at posting lower speeds. Ideally, you sort of look at, maybe larger areas instead of just one-off streets, just so it's not confusing to drivers where they get on one street and then suddenly it's a different speed limit. That's sort of be looking at maybe a larger picture if speed is a concern in a greater area.
Thank you.
Councillor Duncan.
Oh, thank you. I actually was surprised when I was reading the report and I said, well, 35, that means they are over the limit. I thought the speed limit there was already 30 just because of the length of the road and kind of where it is. And as Steph says, just the configuration. I take that road twice a day, every day, if not 4 times a day, depending on where I'm going, doing school drop-off. And so I understand why the neighborhood thought that people were going very fast there. It feels very fast because the road is so short and because you're kind of doing a slalom because there's parking on 2 sides. You have to come around the corner, stop, and wait for the car that's coming towards you and then go around. And if those 2 cars decide to play chicken, it can look dicey. And I take that road every day on my bike. It feels like it's been better lately. It's like the town has adjusted maybe to the higher traffic flow through there. People are used to the fact that now they're going to have to maybe stop and wait. So maybe this is just a matter of people adapting to the traffic pattern. But I was kind of wondering something along the lines of what Councillor Garnett was saying, that because it's a very, very busy school route. For people taking their kids on bikes, for kids walking down the sidewalk, that sidewalk is packed, and then the older kids who are on bikes who are not on the sidewalk are then going into the road on the other side of the parked cars, plus the cars that are trying to arrange who gets the turn. And it's surprising actually that there haven't been more accidents there, just given the amount of traffic on foot and on bikes with children zipping around. And I'm wondering if we should have something like designated like school routes, just in terms of signage rather than the speed limit is about kind of, maybe this might be a communication thing we can work with the school about preferred routes through towns where the children are going, and actually trying to either separate the flow. I don't know how to make us move up onto the trail. The Lochside Trail is right there and I still don't even use it. because it's slightly further and we're always running late for school. But it just might be something maybe that we can look at when we start doing our active transportation plan too, is that would probably make that road be a little safer, and at the very least feel a little safer if we start separating those school traffic versus the commuting traffic.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? I'll add my comment, which is has already been spoken to a little, and that is 22 residents. This stretch, or the Siddle Road is 200 meters long. The 22 residents living, I don't know if that's all of them, but 22 of the residents, which is probably most or all of them, signed a petition, and their concern in their letter was with regards to volume, noise, and speed. And we've heard comment with regards to the volume, and staff have mentioned the thousands of vehicles that were monitored with equipment. Average daily northbound traffic is 971 vehicles a day, and southbound traffic is 1,510, and that's a lot for this, for a residential street like that. But it is serving both the school and it is serving residents coming out of the community. The average speed noted by the equipment was 33 kilometers an hour in one direction, 35 in the other, whereas it's a posted or a town speed limit of 50 km. So people are slowing down, and as indicated in the staff report in their observations, is that vehicles are frequently parked on both sides of the street. It's a normal width roadway, so that has a calming effect. However, the fact these residents took the time to write this letter and express a concern that they feel speed is an issue, and the reason they're mentioning speed is because I believe it's a safety concern, and that I think it would be prudent to post signage of 30 or 40 kilometers an hour. I would take staff's recommendation, indicated that a very low percentage are in excess of 50 kilometers an hour, but is 45 really too fast for there? And is that what has helped driving, the perception of unsafe in that stretch of the neighborhood? So a question through to staff is, what is the process through staff or from council to actually change posted speed in a neighborhood, or on a residential street, or whatever area is decided?
Through to the mayor. If you want to look at a change to a speed limit, we'd look at changing our streets and traffic bylaw, where it specifies which streets are at a varying speed other than 50. So there's a very specific section in the bylaw that identifies what streets are posted at 30 and are set at 30 kilometers per hour. So it would mean a bylaw change, which can be easily done.
So, it is almost in essence part of the school zone. I mean, part of the extended school zone in terms of the traffic pattern and the use. And I meant to take a look, but I even though I go through that area frequently, I don't know if the school zone speed limit extends all the way along Mills Road to Siddle. I don't think it does, but the suggestion would be, given that that's the direction the traffic is coming and going, is that we actually reduce the speed limit to 30 on that stretch of Mills right through to the school, and reduce it to 40 on Siddle. I think we just have to, take a step to try and create a slightly safer environment or a communication to the many people who use that corridor. So if Councillor Wainwright?
I'll move that we refer this to staff to bring forward an option for reducing the speed limit.
Second.
Further discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
Thank you. I guess my concern is, it seems, if I understand this correctly, is that the average speed along that stretch of road was not an issue. Am I understanding this correctly? That average speed is 33 kilometers an hour, or 33 to 35. So it's already below, is it not, the posted So I guess what I'm concerned about is, you know, having staff invest this amount of time in something for, I don't know that it will have a significant impact. If the speed limit is 50, is that correct? And the average speed is 33 to 35. And then we're gonna post a sign that says it's 40 kilometers perhaps. The average speed is already below that. So I think it seems that the issue is not speed. It seems to me it's more the traffic. And I think, you know, and I think that's because, you know, what we've talked about before, there's been more development in that north area up by North Signage. So there's just more traffic overall coming through that area. So I don't know that we can do anything about volume of traffic unless we were to allow people at that intersection by the co-op to travel south on Pat Bay Highway, and then that would, you know, chop off a significant amount of traffic, I think, going through there. But I honestly don't think that posting a different speed limit there is going to make a difference.
Councilor Mingray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the one, bringing forward an option doesn't guarantee that we're actually going to do it, but it means that we'll have something concrete to look at, which I think is reasonable. The staff report mentions an 85th percentile for the speed. And so the 85th percentile southbound is 41 kilometers. And that means there are 225 vehicles a day southbound going faster than 41 kilometers an hour. And the 85th percentile northbound is 42 kilometers an hour, and that's another 120-ish vehicles going more than 42 kilometers an hour. Collectively, that's, you know, over 300 vehicles going faster than 40. So the average is great, but it is maybe reasonable to look.
I mean, to create an average, you're going to have those traveling below 33, but as Councillor Wayrand has indicated, there are those traveling over. We'll go to Councillor Fallot. Then
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I remember many years ago speaking with an RCMP regarding something on roads, and he said there's 3 E's to road design. There's engineering, then there's education and enforcement. And the engineering on this one is we've got a straight through road without anything to break the sight lines, and therefore that's where we're getting the speed and including the volume, because it's an easy road to traverse. So we're not going to be able to do anything about that without losing road width if we were to put islands in there and the whole thing. I think the next part comes to the education, and I really like Councillor Duncan's comment regarding safe school routes. I think there is an education aspect here that we can look at. Reducing the speed in an area where the average driver is already going below the speed limit may not seem like a big deal. I think it will make a difference. I think if we drop it to 30 and perhaps start looking at something like working with the school board or working with the school itself directly and looking at safe school zones, school route is a way to perhaps, if the speed limit drops, I wonder if we're going to reduce traffic on the road. And that might be an added benefit. It's going to go someplace else. It'll probably go to Rest Haven. But Rest Haven, I think, is better geared than going right through the middle of a neighborhood. So I'm comfortable in looking at some options of if we can drop the speed limit here. But I would also like to see that we maybe look at the educational factor of how we view the street and how it's used. Thank you.
If they go to Rest Haven, they're going to be going 30 between the Shoal Centre and the library. Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Part of me thinks that maybe the street should have never been 50. I mean, I don't know, looking back, that 50 kilometers an hour seems like it's out of sorts with a lot of the other parts in that particular area. So it seems like it should have been lower at some point. And I think it's also important to note that when they're doing these signs out there, and people will adjust their driving to the signs, so that's not necessarily indicative of what people normally drive. We don't know the average speed limit when those signs aren't there, when we're not actually measuring what they're driving. So, but the residents do because they live there daily. So I think we also need to take that into consideration, that maybe their concerns are a little more grounded in what really happens to them on a daily basis, based on what happens over a 2 or 3 week period when we're measuring it. So, thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor O'Keefe?
I guess my final point is, I think staff have already spent a good amount of time on this. I'm happy with what they've done and the recommendations that they've put forward. I don't see, in the scheme of all the other things that staff have on their plate, that we will get any significant change in the traffic is still going to be there. I don't think there's going to be any significant change to the how fast people are going. So in my mind, I just honestly think it's not a good use of staff's time at this particular point.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? We have one opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. We now move to item 11D, which is the
Sorry,
award-
point of order, if I was sure. We still have a motion on the table, as I recall. It wasn't withdrawn with respect to the original report?
This was a secondary motion.
This was a
Okay.
motion arising.
Okay.
Or sorry.
And do we still not to give staff instruction around writing to the respondents?
I thought that motion was already.
Sorry, there was the staff recommendation was to staff be directed to provide response letters.
And that was moved and seconded? Yeah.
And we didn't pass that?
We didn't vote on that.
Okay, my apologies. I'll call the question on the original motion, or if there's any further discussion, calling the question on the original motion. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now move to item 11D, which is the Beacon Wharf repair contract.
So, to start this one off, I see that we have a follow-up where Herald Engineering has reviewed the tenders, and they're recommending that it's, that the contract be awarded to Pacific Industrial and Marine. I note the staff recommendation was written before Herald did the review, so I guess I'm just wondering whether it's, whether we need this conditional motion, or whether it would be more appropriate to simply make the motion of awarding the contract per Herald Engineering's. So.
If I can, through the mayor to Councillor Wainwright, yeah, that's a very good point. I would suggest that, yeah, we just simply to award the contract.
Okay, I'll
Thank you.
move that we award the contract for construction of the Beacon Wharf repairs to Pacific Industrial and Marine Limited for $100,845.36.
Second.
Discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. And we'll move to the item 11E, the janitorial services contract, number 2019-007.
I move that contract number 2019-007 janitorial services for municipal facilities covering 2 years, 2020 and 2021, be awarded to commercial building cleaning.
Second?
Discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move to item 13, correspondence. We have a letter regarding traffic safety concerns on Amherst Avenue and 3rd Street, a letter from Mr. Kluge, who is the president of the Strata, dated October 10th.
I'll move refer to staff for report and recommendation to council.
Second?
Discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move to item 14, which is bylaws. 14A is bylaw number 2181, Advisory Planning Commission, staff report dated November 19th.
I'll move that the report be received for information.
Second.
A discussion, all those in favor? Motion carries, thank you.
I'll move introduction of the bylaw.
Second?
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Move second reading.
Second?
Discussion? Call the question in favor? Opposed? One opposed, motion carries.
Two opposed.
Two opposed.
I'll move third
Motion.
reading.
Second?
Those in favor? Those opposed? We have two opposed. Motion carries. Move to item 14B, which is bylaw number 2182, council and committee procedure, amendment number 2.
I'll move that the bylaw be considered for adoption.
Second.
Discussion? Councillor Fallot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have voted in favor of this one, and I have received one email regarding concern of starting the council meetings at 6 p.m. rather than 7 p.m. I still stand with my original argument that I feel that the amount of people it's going to impact is, I don't think is going to be that great, and I think people can adjust and will adjust to the 6 p.m. start time on this one, so I'm prepared to adopt the rest of this bylaw. Thank you.
Councillor Garnett.
I've received 3 emails supporting me by saying that they prefer to keep to the time it's at, and so for that reason, for the same reason I've stated before, I think if it even affects one person, then I'm not in favor of moving it, so thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion, 2 opposed, and the motion carries. Thank you. We now move to new business, and we have 2 items that were referred. We have we'll move to item 16. 16.6 is now item 15A. And Councillor Fallot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we've got this letter from the Victoria Family Court and Youth Justice Committee regarding an update from or information from municipalities and school boards looking for calls to action regarding the Truth and Reconciliation. So I would like to take this out of correspondence as we have and make the motion that the letter be received and be referred to staff for a response with a copy to Mayor and Council.
Second.
Discussion, Councillor Fallon?
Yeah. Now, I realize that this letter has come rather short notice and they are asking for a response by November 30th. They also say that they will make every effort to include our response, even if it's received a little late. I'm not suggesting that staff go through a huge research project looking at our initiatives that we've done here, but I think if we can come up with a few things that to put into the annual report of where Sydney stands on the Truth and Reconciliation, that would be appropriate.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Now we'll move to item 15B, which is the letter from the City of Victoria. Councillor Duncan.
Thank you. So this is a letter from the City of Victoria asking us advising us that there is a motion they put forward to go to the UBCM, but the resolution session ran out of time, and it was moving that we asked for more money towards securing a safe drug supply due to the fentanyl and opioid overdoses, and for the province to look at observed inhalation sites for overdose prevention. And I think these are worthy and achievable. It seems to be the direction that a lot of drug policy has been moving with regards to drug use. So I'd like to move that we send them a letter saying we support this motion and that we would look forward to them being able to bring it forward to the province in whatever capacity the City of Victoria wants to continue moving forward.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Further discussion? I'll call Councillor Wainwright.
I guess we haven't had a lot of time to prepare, I obviously read the thing, but the expectation that we might actually be making a motion to support it. The first resolution that's in this letter is a bit unclear what they're actually proposing. So the topic is safer drug supply to save lives, and there's a bunch of whereases that have to do with the harm associated with unpredictable and sometimes highly toxic drug supply. And then the motion talks about people at risk of overdose harm having access to safer alternatives. Does that mean, is that like, is the intent of that a government quality controlled supply of opioids, or is it get them on marijuana and alcohol instead? It is actually kind of vague what they're actually proposing, and I'm not. I would prefer them to be clearer of what they're actually proposing. The second one I don't really have an issue with, but I guess perhaps we might refer this to a committee of the whole and have a discussion. Otherwise, I think I'm inclined to not support it as a badly crafted resolution.
Just my comment is I found the first comment first paragraph very vague. It is an extremely long, single sentence paragraph. Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I also concerned about passing a motion that I don't feel I have enough information about to make a well-informed decision. So I would be inclined. I'd rather have more opportunity to get more information on what's proposed and whether this is something that is within our realm to influence or not.
So we have the option of a referral motion to committee of the whole, or we can continue with the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Councillor Duncan?
Well, I'm wondering if we send it back to ourselves on committee of the whole and then we write a letter saying, something that we want to put forward, but I'm wondering if we should just simply respond to Victoria directly with Councillor Wainwright's feedback that we would like to endorse this motion. We like the second part of it. However, we're not sure what the first part is. Maybe the town of City would like to hear what your proposals are so that we could support them if you want to move forward with that. But
if the mover and seconder would like to remove the motion, and then we could proceed with another if you wish.
Okay. Yeah, I'll withdraw the first motion.
Okay, and the seconder? Okay, so the motion is removed. And a second, a new motion?
All right. I'll try and make it shorter so Sandy can write it down. I move, I guess, that the mayor write to the City of Victoria expressing our support for the sentiment behind the motion, that we support Section 2, the B172. However, we're unclear on what actions are being requested for item B171 and look forward to the City of Victoria providing more information on what initiatives they would like support on.
Councillor Wainwright.
I don't want to second it. What I'd suggest maybe an alternative is to indicate that we support or we see merit in a motion related to an alternative to toxic drug supplies and provision of safe consumption sites. But we're concerned that the motions are not well crafted and we can't support them as written. And if I get a seconder.
Okay, so we're awaiting a seconder. We're awaiting a seconder on Councillor Duncan's motion. Do we have a seconder to that motion? We do not have a seconder, so if you wish to make it.
So,
I'll move that.
and then I'll second that.
Okay, so and we'll ask for any further discussion. Councillor Wainwright?
In the letter to Victoria, you might point out that the way they've phrased it, they're asking the province of BC to work with X, Y, and Z and themselves. Like, they're actually saying BC to work with the Ministry of Health. Well, that is BC. That is not a good motion.
We will request clarification. Further discussion, Councillor O'Keefe.
Thank you. I support efforts to do something about the opioid crisis. I guess I wonder whether Victoria is going to pay attention to this, and are they actually going to recraft their motion and send it out again, or whether they're just going to say, yeah, that's our motion, support it if you want. So again, I worry about spending staff time that might have minimal impact. So that's my feeling on it.
Councillor Duncan.
I think I know who wrote it, just knowing the interest of the people on council, and I think that they would be receptive to it, and anything that they thought would make their motion stronger and more people support it, I think it would be useful feedback.
Okay. I won't be supporting the motion. While we may receive clarification, I don't believe Victoria Council is going to, I'm not certain Victoria Council will rewrite the motion in council to forward out to municipalities. They've already forwarded this to all local governments in the province. I don't think it's going to receive an amendment. I think it's unfortunately vague. The topic is being brought forward. There are continuous discussions with jurisdictions like City of Vancouver, with the province, and with the feds on this issue. And while I would like to support it, I think it's vague and doesn't deserve support at this time. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? We have two, and those opposed? The motion is defeated. Thank you. We have no notices of motion. Oh, sorry. We have the remaining items of correspondence for
Move
information.
receipt. Second.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no notices of motion, but we require a motion to go on camera.
I move that it is in the opinion of council that the public interest requires that persons other than members of the council and officers be excluded from the meeting to consider confidential matters respecting a legal matter pursuant to section 90.1G of the community charter, and that the council continue the meeting in closed session.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.